Some ancient structures have outlasted entire civilizations. This video uncovers the forgotten materials that made such impossible longevity a reality. You will learn the secrets of self-healing concrete and fused stone that modern science cannot fully explain. How could Roman harbors strengthen with age while ours crumble? What lost plants allowed the Incas to mold granite like clay? These mysteries point to a deeper understanding of the natural world, one we have since misplaced. What does the endurance of these ancient sites say about our own relationship with time and nature? Roman concrete stands as a monumental contradiction to our own building practices. While our modern harbors crumble within decades, theirs have withstood 2,000 years of relentless ocean forces. The secret was not just in what they mixed, but in what the mixture became over time. They combined volcanic ash, lime, and seawater, a recipe that initiated a slow chemical conversation with the sea. Modern scientists using powerful microscopes discovered the result, a rare mineral called aluminous tobermorite. This is not a passive material. It is alive in a geological sense, growing tiny, interlocking crystals when seawater seeps into microscopic cracks. This self-healing process means the concrete does not just resist damage, it actively repairs itself, becoming tougher with every passing century. Structures like the Portus Cosanus harbor are not merely surviving, they are still evolving, strengthening themselves against the very element that destroys our own creations. The Romans possessed a deep, almost intuitive understanding of geochemistry, one we are only beginning to decode with our most advanced tools. This mastery of stone leads us to an even more puzzling mystery high in the Andes, where the Incas seemed to bend granite itself to their will. High in the Andes, the silence of the mountains is broken only by the wind, whispering past stones cut with impossible precision. The granite blocks of an Incan fortress are locked together so perfectly that their seams have baffled engineers for centuries. No mortar fills the gaps because no gaps exist. The stone itself seems to have been persuaded to fuse with its neighbor. How could a civilization without iron tools or the wheel achieve such a feat? The answer may lie not in force but in chemistry. A compelling theory suggests the Incas possessed a knowledge of local botany that we have since lost. They might have used a paste or a liquid derived from specific mountain plants, a substance that could temporarily soften the hard surface of granite. Imagine being able to press two stones together like clay, their surfaces becoming slightly malleable, bonding at a molecular level as the treatment wore off. This would explain the undulating, organic fit that looks less like masonry and more like something grown. Local oral histories tell of a liquid stone formula, a secret known only to master builders. Yet, every modern attempt to recreate this process has ended in failure. We are missing two key pieces: the identity of the magical plant and the exact method of its application. This is not a story of superior force, but of superior understanding, a deep communion with the natural world that granted them the ability to shape stone itself. This concept of a lost, powerful substance makes one wonder about other legendary materials from the ancient world, particularly the infamous Greek fire. The same mastery that fused stone in the Andes finds a terrifying parallel in the ancient seas. Greek fire was the nightmare of every sailor who faced the Byzantine fleet, a liquid flame that clung to wood and water alike, burning with a fury that could not be quenched. While its primary purpose was destruction, its existence hints at a material science so advanced that its principles could have been transformative. The substance was not merely flammable, it was reactive, created to ignite upon contact with seawater and adhere to any surface it touched. Imagine the engineering potential of such a formula, a sticky, waterproof, incredibly durable binder. If the chemistry could be tamed, stripped of its violent combustion, what could it have sealed? What could it have glued together? The secret was so valued that it was buried with the Byzantine emperors, a state mystery that died with its keepers. Modern chemists theorize it was a volatile cocktail of crude petroleum, quicklime, and perhaps other secret ingredients, a mixture that created a form of spontaneous combustion when activated. This was not simple alchemy, it was applied chemical engineering of the highest order. Its loss is a stark reminder that ancient knowledge was not always a gentle art, sometimes it was a guarded power, and its disappearance leaves us to wonder what other structural miracles were possible. This profound mystery of a lost chemical art leads us to another wonder, one that has endured entirely without such volatile secrets, the indestructible iron pillars of India. While the Greeks and Byzantines guarded the secrets of volatile fire, another civilization perfected a material of serene and silent endurance. In the heart of Delhi, a towering iron pillar has defied a fundamental law of nature for more than 16 centuries. It stands completely exposed to sun, rain, and humid air, yet it shows no significant rust. This is not a modern stainless steel alloy, but a 6-ton column of ancient iron, and its pristine surface is a mystery that modern science has yet to solve. The secret lies in its unique composition. Ancient Indian metalworkers, through a sophisticated smelting process, created an iron with a high phosphorus content. This was not a random impurity, but a deliberate ingredient. The phosphorus, combined with iron and oxygen from the air, fostered the growth of a thin, invisible, and remarkably stable protective layer called a passive film. This film acts as a shield, preventing the oxygen and moisture that cause rust from ever reaching the core metal. It is a self-protecting skin that has healed and maintained itself for over 1,600 years. The true genius, however, was not just in the recipe but in the sourcing. These artisans possessed a deep, localized knowledge, using specific iron ores that naturally contained the right minerals, likely from particular regions whose identity is now lost. They understood that the very earth from which the metal was drawn held the key to its immortality. Every modern attempt to replicate this pillar has failed to achieve its legendary longevity. We can analyze the pillar's structure, but we cannot rediscover the precise combination of ore, furnace technique, and crafting wisdom that brought it to life. This was a holistic art where the miner, the smelter, and the blacksmith worked in a chain of knowledge we can no longer follow. The existence of such a perfect metal, designed not to decay, naturally shifts our gaze to another metal that has always captivated humanity, one that ancient cultures seem to manipulate with an almost supernatural skill: gold. The silent perfection of the Incan stones finds a metallic echo in the deserts of Peru. Here, another mystery is locked in stone, bound not by a softening agent, but by metal poured directly into the rock itself. At sites like Ollantaytambo and Sacsayhuaman, immense granite blocks are joined with metal clamps, but these were not simply hammered in. The evidence reveals that the metal, a sophisticated copper arsenic or bronze alloy, was poured into place while molten, flowing into intricate dovetail channels carved into the granite. This single fact shatters our conventional image of ancient construction. It means the builders possessed portable, high-temperature forges capable of generating enough heat to melt these specific alloys right at the building site, a feat of logistics and metallurgy we did not believe was possible for them. The temperatures required are immense, far beyond a simple campfire. How did they achieve this in the field, and what kind of furnace could be so mobile yet so powerful? The puzzle deepens when you examine the stone itself. The The channels that hold these metal clamps are carved with absolute precision, their dovetail shapes perfect and smooth. Yet there are no tool marks left behind, no evidence of the chisels or drills that must have been used to create them. It is as if the granite was carved with a tool that left no trace, a technology that remains completely unknown to us. This points to a dual loss, a forgotten mastery of both metallurgy and stoneworking. The knowledge required to cast metal on site and the skill to prepare the stone to receive it represent a complete, integrated system of construction that has since vanished. This level of sophistication hints at an even deeper understanding of materials, one that extended into a realm we are only beginning to appreciate: the intentional engineering of sound and vibration within these ancient spaces. The same mastery that shaped stone and metal extended into a realm we can hear but not see, the invisible architecture of sound. Deep within the Mayan pyramid of Chichen Itza, a simple clap does not return as a mere echo. It cascades back from the massive stone steps as the distinct chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird. This is not a coincidence of geology, but a carefully engineered phenomenon. The builders calculated the exact spacing and angle of each step to scatter sound waves in this specific, symbolic pattern. Half a world away, in the underground labyrinth of Mortar's hypogeum, a different acoustic mystery unfolds. This chamber, carved from solid limestone, does not just amplify sound, it transforms it. A single voice spoken at a certain pitch can resonate through the entire complex, vibrating not just the air but the very bones of the listener. It creates a frequency that some researchers suggest can alter brainwave patterns, inducing states of deep focus or tranquility. The stone itself, its density and crystalline structure, acts as a natural filter and amplifier. This reveals a profound insight. These ancient cultures did not merely build structures to be seen, but to be felt and heard. They possessed a holistic grasp of physics, understanding that the choice of stone, the curve of a wall, and the texture of a surface were all variables in a complex acoustic equation. They were composing experiences with the very materials of their world, designing spaces that could communicate, inspire, or even heal. This intentional shaping of our sensory reality forces a question: if they could so perfectly tune the world of sound, what other invisible forces did they learn to harness within their stone and mortar? The same invisible architecture that shaped sound also built defenses against the slow decay of time itself. Walk through the ancient temples of Southeast Asia, and you will notice something strange, a profound cleanliness that defies the jungle's constant assault. While modern buildings in the same climate are quickly cloaked in moss and grime, stones here remain startlingly bare, their surfaces having shed water and dirt for 1,000 years. The secret is not magic, but a forgotten form of material science. Researchers analyzing these surfaces found they are fundamentally different. They are hydrophobic, meaning they actively repel water. When rain falls, it does not seep in, it beads up and rolls away, carrying dust and spores with it. This is not a passive property of the stone, it is an applied technology. The most compelling theory points to plant-based sealants, a liquid treatment brushed or poured onto the finished structure. This treatment did not just coat the stone, it transformed its very surface, creating a microscopic landscape of peaks and valleys, a texture that mimics the lotus leaf. This natural structure is the key. It minimizes the surface area that water can cling to, causing droplets to simply slide away. It is a perfect example of ancient nanotechnology, engineering at a scale invisible to the eye but powerful in its effect. At the Borobudur Temple in Indonesia, this technology is on full display. Its vast, intricate carvings show far less biological growth than any contemporary structure, preserved not by constant human care, but by the enduring intelligence of their original finish. This self-cleaning property was a masterstroke of preservation, preventing the two great enemies of stone, water infiltration and the organic acids produced by lichen and moss. By stopping water at the surface, they prevented the freeze-thaw cycles that crack rock and the mineral erosion that dissolves detail. This ancient innovation reveals a philosophy of building for permanence, where the finish was as crucial as the foundation. It forces us to ask, if they could command water to simply roll away from a wall, what other profound control did they exert over this essential element, particularly in the very mortar that held their world together? This principle of building with water, not just against it, reaches its pinnacle in the forgotten science of ancient cements. While we pour modern concrete that crumbles in decades, entire civilizations perfected hydraulic binders that gained strength from the very element meant to destroy them. In ancient China, master builders achieved the impossible by blending ordinary lime with a most unexpected ingredient, sticky rice soup. This organic mortar, used in tombs and city walls, has withstood violent earthquakes for over 1,500 years. The amylopectin in the rice created a microstructure that was both stronger and more flexible than conventional lime mortar, a natural composite material of breathtaking ingenuity. Half a world away, Roman engineers achieved a similar feat through a different path. They mined pozzolana, a specific volcanic ash, and mixed it with lime and seawater. This combination triggered a chemical reaction that formed a crystalline matrix, a concrete that was not merely water-resistant, but that actively thrived in it, growing tougher for centuries. The most profound lesson here is not in any single recipe, but in the pattern. Separated by vast continents, these cultures independently converged on the same fundamental principle, that longevity required a binder which engaged with water in a chemical dance. They looked to their local environments for answers, the Chinese to their rice paddies and the Romans to their volcanoes, and found distinct paths to the same monumental truth. Their success was rooted in a deep, localized material wisdom, a knowledge of exactly which local resource, when combined with lime, would unlock this waterproof magic. This wisdom was eventually lost because our own industrial era prioritized speed over endurance. Modern Portland cement was designed for rapid setting to fuel rapid construction, sacrificing the slow, complex chemistry that granted these ancient materials their near-eternal life. The loss of these formulas is a reminder that progress is not always a straight line forward, and that sometimes the most advanced knowledge is quietly displaced in the race for convenience. This mastery over water in their mortar makes the achievements of desert builders who faced the opposite challenge all the more awe-inspiring. Even the most humble materials in the hands of masters could achieve the miraculous. In the vast deserts of Mesopotamia, where the sun scorched the earth by day and the cold settled deeply by night, builders faced a monumental challenge. They needed to construct entire cities from the very ground beneath their feet. Their answer was the sun-dried brick, a technology so simple in concept yet so sophisticated in execution that its ruins still dot the landscape after thousands of years. They did not just mix mud and straw. They engineered a composite material, blending specific clays with precise amounts of sand for structure, chopped straw to prevent cracking, and sometimes even animal blood or plant resins as a natural binding agent. This was not a haphazard recipe, it was a formula perfected over generations. The process of curing was an art in itself. The bricks were not merely left in the sun. They were turned and stacked in ways that allowed for slow, even drying from the inside out, preventing the internal stresses that cause modern replicas to crumble. This created a brick that was resilient to the desert's brutal expansion and contraction with the heat, and even resistant to the rare but destructive downpours. Modern builders attempting to recreate these bricks using the same ingredients often find their work deteriorating within years. The lost knowledge is not in the list of ingredients, but in the intimate understanding of proportions, the timing of mixing, and the patient, methodical curing process that transformed mud into a legacy. This was a profound collaboration with the environment, using the sun not as an enemy to be shielded against, but as the primary tool of creation. From this mastery of the desert, we must then look to the opposite extreme, to the cultures that thrived in dense, water-rich forests and whose architectural genius lay not in resisting the elements, but in embracing their fluidity. The same genius that mastered stone and metal in grand monuments also thrived in the humble homes of Northern Europe. Here, in a world of relentless rain and damp, ancient builders faced a different challenge. They did not have endless quarries of granite, but they had forests and fields. Their solution was Wattle and Daub, and its survival is its own quiet miracle. This was not mere mud slapped onto a stick frame. The daub that coats these medieval structures is a complex, engineered composite, a chemistry of the commonplace. Analysis of thousand-year-old samples reveals recipes of startling sophistication. They blended specific local clays with sand for body, then added chopped straw or animal hair for tensile strength, much like the steel rebar in our own concrete. But the true alchemy came from the binders. They incorporated animal dung and sometimes even blood or urine, not out of desperation, but from a profound understanding of organic chemistry. These materials, as they cured and aged, created a slow chemical reaction. They formed a matrix that was inherently flexible, allowing the entire wall to breathe and shift with the freeze and thaw of seasons without developing catastrophic cracks. Simultaneously, this organic composite became remarkably water-resistant. It did not absorb moisture like a sponge, but shed it, protecting the vulnerable wooden frame within. Modern synthetic stuccos and plasters often fail at this very balance, becoming brittle and cracking or trapping moisture that leads to rot. The lost knowledge here is not a single secret ingredient, but a deep, localized wisdom. It was the understanding of which local clay had the right plasticity, which animal manure produced the most effective binding enzymes, and the exact proportions needed for a specific microclimate. This was building in partnership with the land, using its very cycles of life and decay to create a shelter that could endure them. It stands in stark contrast to the monumental stoneworks of other cultures, a testament to a different kind of intelligence, one that found immortality not in quarried rock, but in the clever alchemy of the earth underfoot. The silent perfection of the Egyptian pyramids holds a question that echoes louder than any tomb. How could a civilization with only copper chisels carve granite and diorite, stones so hard they blunt modern steel tools, with surfaces as smooth as glass? The official explanation of endless pounding and grinding with sand feels incomplete, a story that does not fully account for the microscopic precision on display. A more controversial idea persists, one found in the gaps of ancient texts and the uncanny results of modern experiments. Some Egyptologists point to papyrus records that cryptically mention stone dissolving liquids, a phrase that hints at a lost chemical art. The theory suggests the Egyptians knew of plant-based extracts, perhaps from specific reeds or barks, that could temporarily soften the surface of even the hardest stone. Imagine applying a paste that made granite temporarily pliable like stiff clay, allowing artisans to carve intricate hieroglyphs with a copper tool as if it were a stylus. Once the chemical treatment wore off or was washed away, the stone would return to its full, diamond-like hardness, leaving behind a flawlessly smooth surface. Modern researchers testing this idea have found that certain organic acids, like oxalic acid found in some plants, can indeed create a superficial softening effect on crystalline rock. It would not melt the stone, but subtly disrupt the bonds at the surface, just enough to make it workable. This would explain the impossible internal corners in granite sarcophagi and the laser-like seams between colossal blocks. If such a technique was real, it was not magic but a profound application of geochemistry. The knowledge would have been a closely guarded secret of the priest architects, a formula as valuable as gold. Its potential loss forces a humbling reconsideration of ancient technology. We are left to wonder if their greatest architectural achievement was not the moving of million-ton blocks, but the quiet, chemical persuasion of the stone itself. High on a windswept hill in Scotland, the ramparts of an Iron Age fort tell a story written in fire and stone, but this is not a tale of simple construction. Sections of the wall have been transformed, melted and fused into a dark, glassy substance. This is vitrification, a process that turns rock into glass, and it demands a heat so intense it defies easy explanation. To achieve this, the stone must be heated to around 1,100 degrees Celsius, a temperature that would challenge a modern blacksmith's forge. A simple bonfire of wood and branches could never reach such an inferno. So how did ancient builders millennia ago accomplish this feat across dozens of such forts in Europe? One compelling theory suggests they were master chemists of the landscape. They may have gathered specific plants, like certain hardy shrubs or even animal bones, and packed them tightly against the stone walls before setting them ablaze. This was not a random pile of fuel. This specific organic material, when burned in a low-oxygen environment, could have created a chemical reaction, releasing intense, focused heat that attacked the stone itself. The silica within the rock would have begun to melt, flowing between the other stones and then cooling into a solid, glassy cement that locked the entire wall together. But was this fusion intentional or a spectacular accident? Some argue it was a desperate defensive measure, creating a super-hard, unified rampart that could withstand siege engines and fire. Others hear the echoes of a ritual, a symbolic act of permanent consecration, turning a simple fortification into an everlasting monument through an alchemical marriage of earth and fire. The truth may be lost, but the vitrified stone remains, a permanent question mark against our assumptions of the past. The same alchemy that fused stone in Scotland found a gentler, more enduring expression in the mortar of ancient China. For over 1,500 years, sections of the Great Wall have withstood earthquakes and brutal weather, not in spite of their mortar, but because of it. Their secret ingredient was a staple of the dinner table, sticky rice. Builders perfected a recipe mixing standard lime with a thick soup made from this special rice, creating a composite material of breathtaking intelligence. Modern scientists analyzing this ancient mortar discovered the magic lies in the amylopectin, a component of the rice starch. This organic molecule worked its way into the inorganic lime matrix, creating a structure that is both stronger and more flexible. It acts like a microscopic reinforcement, a web that prevents tiny cracks from spreading and becoming catastrophic failures. This is why walls bonded with this mortar could sway and absorb the immense energy of seismic shifts, while rigid modern cement used in repairs simply shatters. The true mastery, however, was in the process. It was not enough to just mix rice and lime. The knowledge of exactly how long to cook the rice soup, at what temperature to combine it with the slaked lime, and the precise method of stirring was a craft passed from one generation of artisans to the next. This was not a written formula, but a living wisdom in the hands of the builders. With the rush of industrialization, that intimate, hands-on knowledge faded away. We know what they used, but we have lost the nuanced art of how they used it. This brilliant fusion of food science and structural engineering stands as a powerful testament to a different philosophy. It was a worldview that saw no divide between the kitchen and the quarry, finding monumental strength in the most humble of resources. The same alchemical wisdom that created sticky rice mortar in China flourished in a world of endless blue. Across the vast expanse of the Pacific, island builders faced a paradox. They needed to construct in a marine environment where saltwater and storms relentlessly attack stone and mortar. Their solution was not imported but harvested from the lagoon itself. They learned to turn coral into a lime of legendary strength. This was not the simple burning of limestone practiced elsewhere. The coral they selected, specific species with intricate skeletal structures, held a secret chemistry. When burned in precisely built earth ovens at controlled temperatures, the coral released not just lime, but a blend of magnesium and other trace minerals from the sea. The process was a ritual of fire and water. The resulting quicklime was not slaked with fresh water, but with seawater itself. This critical step created a powerful hydraulic mortar, a substance that actually gains its final strength and hardens through a chemical reaction with water. The outcome was a building glue perfectly adapted to its home, immune to the corrosive salt that eats away at modern concrete. With this knowledge, they built vast shoreline fish ponds whose walls still stand against the ocean's push, and temples whose platforms have endured hurricanes that have flattened modern settlements. We can analyze the molecular structure of this coral lime today and see its superior crystalline formation, but the indigenous knowledge of which specific coral to harvest, the exact temperature of the burn, and the rhythmic timing of the slaking process was an oral tradition, a song of creation that faded with the last of the master builders. This was not a universal recipe, but a hyper-localized science, a deep conversation with a specific reef and a specific sea. Its loss reminds us that the most profound material wisdom is often not written in books, but etched into the landscape and the memory of a people. While we marvel at the coral-based limes of the Pacific, another civilization was building its legacy with a material bubbling up from the earth itself. In the sun-scorched plains of Mesopotamia, where water was both a precious resource and a destructive force, builders turned to the black, viscous tar that seeped from the ground, bitumen. This was not a crude, unrefined glue. Analysis of surviving structures reveals a material science of surprising sophistication. The Mesopotamians did not just collect and slap on the raw substance. They developed intricate methods for processing it, heating and skimming it to remove impurities and achieve specific consistencies for different tasks. They then engineered it, creating advanced composites by mixing the purified bitumen with other organic materials like plant resins and specific mineral fillers. The result was a versatile building material that could be poured as a waterproof membrane for royal baths, used as a powerful adhesive to set mosaics, or mixed into mortar to grant mud bricks a formidable defense against the rare but violent desert downpours. The true genius of this composite was its engineered flexibility. In the brutal heat where modern asphalt would soften into a sticky mess, their formula remained stable. In the cold of the desert night, where a brittle material would crack, it retained a degree of give, moving with the structure it protected. This was not a single recipe, but a tailored approach, a deep knowledge of how to modify the base bitumen to perform perfectly in its specific application and location. The exact sources they tapped and the nuanced, hands-on techniques for refining and blending were a craft passed down through generations of builders. This knowledge was ultimately displaced by the rise of standardized petroleum products. We have replaced their tailored, environmental wisdom with a one-size-fits-all industrial solution, and in the process, we lost the specific alchemy that made their bitumen so perfectly adapted to its home. The enduring walls of ancient Mesopotamian cities, still standing in defiance of a harsh climate, are a silent monument to this lost mastery, a reminder that the most enduring solutions are often those forged in a deep and intimate conversation with the local earth. The resilience of Mesopotamian bitumen finds a parallel in a culture that built not with stone but with wood in a land constantly shaken by the earth itself. In Japan, ancient temples stand as serene monuments to a different kind of alchemy, one that transformed living trees into structures that could endure for well over 1,000 years. The Horyuji temple, with its graceful pagoda, is not merely old, it is a living library of material science. Its wooden pillars and beams, hewn over 14 centuries ago, show a stunning lack of rot or insect damage. This longevity is not an accident of climate, but the result of a meticulous, holistic preservation system. The process began not in the workshop, but in the forest. Master builders possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of local tree species, selecting specific woods for their unique structural roles. Cypress, revered for its straight grain and resistance to moisture, was chosen for critical pillars, while other woods with different properties were used for beams or decorative elements. The timing of the harvest was equally crucial. Trees were felled in late autumn or winter when the sap had receded, resulting in a denser, more stable timber with a lower risk of cracking as it dried. The drying process itself was an exercise in patience. Wood was not kiln-dried but seasoned naturally for years, sometimes even decades, allowing it to stabilize gradually and develop its full inherent strength. The final step was the application of protective coatings derived entirely from the local environment. A primary defense was persimmon tannin, a liquid extracted from unripe fruit. This dark, astringent juice was brushed onto the wood, where it would penetrate and oxidize, forming a hard, waterproof shell that repelled insects and fungal growth. This was not a mere surface paint, but a chemical transformation of the wood's outer layer, creating a barrier that breathed with the timber, allowing moisture to escape without letting the elements in. This entire philosophy, from forest management to final finish, represents a profound harmony with nature. The builders did not seek to conquer their materials, but to understand and guide them. They worked with the natural properties of wood, not against them, creating structures that could flex and sway with seismic forces that would shatter rigid modern buildings. This deep, localized wisdom, passed down through generations of artisans, has been largely displaced by the speed of contemporary construction. We know the ingredients they used, but the intimate, hands-on knowledge of the perfect harvest moon, the ideal drying time, and the exact consistency of the persimmon juice, that sacred recipe for permanence, has faded into silence. This same reverence for wood and stone extends into a far more elusive realm, the invisible energy of place. Walk into certain ancient temples or stone circles, and you might feel a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a quiet hum that seems to resonate not in your ears but in your very bones. While modern science offers no easy instruments to measure this, a compelling thread of thought suggests ancient builders were not just masters of physical materials, but of energetic ones as well. Some researchers point to the controversial concept of orgone energy, a term from the 20th century for a hypothetical life force that permeates the environment. The theory proposes that ancient cultures intuitively understood this energy and deliberately selected and placed their building materials to accumulate or channel it. This might explain why builders at certain sites chose specific types of granite, known for its high quartz content and piezoelectric properties, or why they precisely oriented metal clamps within stone walls. The idea is that these materials, in their unique configurations, could act as a kind of battery or antenna for subtle environmental energies. Mainstream archaeology rightly questions these claims, citing a lack of reproducible evidence. Yet, the sheer volume of persistent, cross-cultural reports from these sites is difficult to ignore. Visitors and researchers alike speak of accelerated plant growth, strange equipment malfunctions, and profound sensations of well-being that cannot be easily attributed to psychology alone. This persistent mystery suggests we may be overlooking a whole dimension of ancient material science. Perhaps their true mastery was a holistic one, where the structural integrity of a stone was inseparable from its capacity to interact with the living environment. They may have built not just for physical endurance, but for energetic resonance, creating spaces that actively harmonized with the unseen forces of the world. This profound possibility forces us to reconsider the very purpose of their architecture, moving beyond mere shelter or worship toward the creation of tuned instruments for living. The stones themselves were more than just a foundation, they were a celestial clock. High on a ridge in Ireland, the ancient mound of Newgrange guards a secret that unfolds for just a few minutes each year. At the dawn of the winter solstice, a slender beam of sunlight pierces through a perfectly aligned opening, a light box crafted with impossible precision. But the miracle does not end there. The interior chamber is lined with white quartz stones, their surfaces carefully selected and arranged. They do not merely receive the light, they amplify it, catching the sun's first golden rays and reflecting them with a dazzling brilliance that floods the entire sacred space. This was not a happy accident of geology. The builders chose this specific stone for its crystalline properties, understanding intuitively how its facets would interact with light at a specific, low winter angle. They engineered an experience using the material itself as a lens to magnify a cosmic event. A similar wisdom guided the architects along the Nile. In certain Egyptian temples, the inner sanctums were lined with specific, highly polished stones. Under the cloak of night, these surfaces would capture the faint gleam of specific stars, casting predictable patterns of reflected starlight onto altar stones or marked floor positions. These patterns shifted with the seasons, marking the solstices and equinoxes with a silent, celestial accuracy. This reveals a breathtaking layer of intention. These cultures were not just stacking rocks, they were building interactive instruments. The material was not chosen for strength alone, but for its behavior in relation to the heavens, for how it would handle light from a star billions of kilometers away. They considered the passage of time not in years, but in millennia, designing structures where the very stones would engage in a perpetual, silent dialogue with the sun and stars. This deep integration of material science and astronomy suggests a unified vision of the cosmos, one where the earth and sky were connected, and the builder's role was to weave that connection into the very fabric of their most enduring creations. The very stones these builders chose were not inert blocks, but active participants in a silent dance with the sun. Across the globe, ancient architects demonstrated a masterful understanding of thermal dynamics, selecting specific rocks for their ability to breathe with the daily cycle of heat and cold. In the high deserts of the American Southwest, the Pueblo people built their magnificent cliff dwellings from sandstone. This was not a random choice of a readily available material. Sandstone possesses a high thermal mass, meaning it absorbs solar heat slowly and steadily throughout the scorching day. Then, as the desert air turned frigid after sunset, the stone would gently release that stored warmth, radiating it back into the living spaces. This created a natural, self-regulating thermostat, maintaining a remarkably stable and comfortable interior environment without a single moving part. It was a perfect harmony with the rhythm of the land. A similar, yet even more intricate genius unfolded in the ancient city of Shibam in Yemen. Here, builders erected towering mud brick skyscrapers that pierced the desert sky. They did not use a uniform material throughout. Instead, they strategically employed different types of stone and brick in specific wall positions. Lighter, more reflective materials might be used on the sun-facing exposures to deflect the intense radiation, while denser, heat-absorbing stones were placed in interior walls to act as thermal batteries. The very architecture of the buildings, with their tall, narrow profiles and strategically placed wind catchers, worked in concert with these materials to funnel cool breezes and create a natural stack effect, drawing hot air up and out. This was not merely building with stone, it was composing a symphony of thermal regulation where every material had a specific role to play in the orchestra of comfort. The profound knowledge of which local stone possessed the right specific heat capacity, which density was ideal for a particular wall orientation, and how to combine them all into a cohesive system, represented a localized science of immense sophistication. This wisdom has been largely displaced by our reliance on mechanical heating and air conditioning. We have traded a deep, intuitive partnership with the environment for the brute force of powered systems, forgetting that the land itself often holds the perfect, passive solution to the challenges it presents. Deep within the silent stone circles and weathered temples, another layer of ancient genius is coming to light. One that responds not to light or sound, but to an invisible force we carry in our pockets. Recent studies have revealed that the builders of these sites did not choose their stones at random. They deliberately selected rocks rich in magnetic minerals like magnetite, and then positioned them within their structures according to the Earth's own magnetic field. At an ancient temple in Peru, for instance, researchers mapped the magnetic properties of the stones and found a startling pattern. The large, carved blocks were not just placed for structural stability, but were oriented so that their magnetic signatures created a deliberate, larger design across the entire site. This was not a coincidence, it was a conscious, sophisticated application of a subtle natural science. The immediate question is why? What was the purpose of this magnetic architecture? Some researchers suggest it could have been a form of terrestrial navigation, a permanent physical map of the planet's magnetic field for rituals or celestial calculations. Others propose a more energetic idea that these aligned stones were meant to harness or amplify the Earth's natural energy, perhaps for purposes we can no longer fully comprehend. The most profound mystery, however, is not the why but the how. How did these ancient cultures detect these subtle magnetic properties without a single modern instrument? They possessed a perceptual sensitivity to the natural world that we have long since lost, an ability to feel the gentle pull of magnetite in a rock, perhaps with simple lodestones or even through a deep, intuitive attunement to the land itself. This suggests their knowledge of geology and physics was not just practical but deeply holistic. They saw a stone not merely as a building block, but as a complex entity with its own unique relationship to the forces of the planet. In our world, we are surrounded by magnetic fields from our devices, yet we are utterly blind to the quiet, persistent pull of the Earth that they so masterfully built into their world. This silent, magnetic dialogue between their stones and the planet stands as a humbling testament to a different way of knowing, one where the boundary between a temple and a scientific instrument simply did not exist. This same mastery of stone and energy extended into the visible spectrum, painting the ancient world in colors that refuse to fade. The deep lapis lazuli of an Egyptian tomb, the brilliant turquoise on a Mayan frieze, the striking vermilion of a Chinese temple beam. these are not faint ghosts of their original selves. They are as vibrant today as they were thousands of years ago, defying centuries of relentless sun, driving rain, and modern chemical pollution. Their endurance is not a matter of luck, but of a sophisticated color technology we have since forgotten. Modern synthetic pigments created for affordability and mass production often begin to deteriorate within decades, their molecular structures breaking down under ultraviolet light. The ancient versions, however, performed a kind of chemical alchemy. Egyptian blue, for instance, was not merely painted on. It was a crystalline compound of silica, lime, copper, and an alkali, heated to a precise temperature until it formed a stable, glass-like substance that was then painstakingly ground to a specific coarseness. This was not just a pigment, it was a manufactured mineral engineered to be part of the wall itself. The process of application was just as crucial. These colors were often mixed with unique organic binding agents, plant saps or animal glues that acted as a chemical bridge. They created a powerful bond between the color particles and the plaster or stone underneath, effectively fusing the pigment to the surface in a single, durable skin. This fusion meant the color did not sit vulnerably on top. It became an integral part of the material, sharing its fate. The knowledge of how to create these permanent colors was a sacred craft, passed from master to apprentice in a chain of lived experience. It was not just a list of ingredients, but an intimate understanding of grinding times, heating durations, and the exact consistency of the binder. This profound wisdom was a casualty of industrialization. The demand for cheaper, faster alternatives displaced the slow, meticulous art of creating colors for the ages. We chose convenience over permanence, and in doing so, we lost the secret to painting with light that could endure time itself. These foundations were not static anchors, but dynamic systems designed to dance with the earth. In regions torn by relentless seismic forces, ancient builders solved a problem that still challenges our best engineers today: how to make a structure survive the ground moving beneath it. The Minoans on the island of Crete did not simply lay their palaces on solid rock. They constructed intricate foundations using a layered cake of different materials. A base of crushed stone might be topped with a thick stratum of clay, followed by a layer of sand and then compressed earth. Each of these materials responded to shock waves in a different way. The rigid stones would transmit energy, while the softer, granular layers would absorb and dissipate it, scattering the destructive force horizontally before it could travel upwards into the walls. It was a deliberate, material-based strategy for managing chaos, turning a single, violent jolt into a series of smaller, manageable tremors. High in the Andes, the Incas approached the same problem with a different, equally brilliant solution. Their massive stone structures rest on foundations that are not fully bonded to the walls above. They used rounded river stones or a layer of gravel as a bedding course. When an earthquake struck, this clever interface allowed the foundation to shift and settle independently from the immense, multi-ton walls it supported. The entire building could sway and rock on its base without fracturing, the stones grinding and resettling into a new, stable position once the shaking stopped. This was not just robust construction, it was intelligent design that anticipated and accommodated movement. The profound knowledge here was hyper-local. It was an understanding of exactly which river gravel had the right mix of friction and give, or which local clay would compact to the perfect density for energy absorption. This was a geotechnical wisdom born from centuries of observing how the land itself behaved under stress. Modern engineering, with its complex computer models, is only now formally embracing this ancient insight through base isolation systems, where buildings are set on flexible bearings to decouple them from ground motion. We are relearning what these master builders knew intuitively, that sometimes the strongest foundation is not the most rigid one, but the one that knows how to move. This deep, material dialogue with a living Earth makes the precision of their astronomical alignments all the more remarkable, as if they were building calendars not just for tracking time, but for predicting the very movements of the planet they so cleverly learned to ride. The same invisible forces that shaped stone and light may have had a living, breathing presence. Emerging research is now pointing to a paradigm so advanced it challenges the very definition of construction, the deliberate use of microscopic life as a building material. Scientists analyzing ancient Roman and Mayan mortars have found something astonishing: fossilized evidence of specific bacteria trapped within the mix. These were not random contaminants, but species known for a unique talent. They consume nutrients and excrete calcite, a mineral that is the primary component of limestone itself. The builders seem to have intentionally seeded their mortars with these organisms. When a tiny crack forms and water seeps in, it reawakens the dormant bacteria. The microbes feed, multiply, and fill the fissure with a fresh, strong layer of natural cement, a self-healing process that can continue for centuries. This is not just smart chemistry, it is integrated biology. The builders were not merely mixing paste, they were cultivating a microscopic workforce, engineering a living material that could maintain itself. This concept extends beyond mortar. The mysterious strength of certain ancient adobe bricks might be explained by fungal networks. The fine, thread-like mycelia of specific fungi can bind particles together, creating a natural composite with a flexibility that resists cracking, a living rebar woven through the very fabric of a wall. This biointegration represents a completely different relationship with the natural world. Our modern approach is to dominate materials, to force them into submission with heat, pressure, and synthetic chemicals. The ancient approach appears to have been one of collaboration. They saw the potential not just in the stone, but in the life that could inhabit it, harnessing the innate intelligence of living systems to do the work of preservation. We are only now, with our gene sequencers and electron microscopes, beginning to glimpse this lost art of biological architecture. It suggests a wisdom that considered a building not as a static object, but as a dynamic, living system, one that could heal and sustain itself long after its creators were gone. The true masterpiece of ancient construction often began not at the building site, but deep within the earth itself. Modern geologists, using tools like X-ray fluorescence, have made a startling discovery. The stones used in the most enduring monuments were not chosen merely for their appearance or convenience. They were selectively quarried from very specific locations, sites whose geological history endowed the rock with unique crystalline structures and mineral compositions. The Romans, for instance, did not just use any travertine. They sourced it from the quarries at Tivoli, where the stone possessed a specific density and fracture pattern that made it ideal for bearing immense loads. The Egyptians traveled vast distances to the quarry at Aswan for their granite, a journey of hundreds of kilometers, because they knew that particular granite, with its high quartz and feldspar content, would take a polish like glass and resist weathering for millennia. This was not random selection, it was a science. Master builders possessed a generational map of the land, a living knowledge of which cliff face yielded the most durable sandstone, which riverbed clay held the perfect plasticity for bricks, and which forest ridge grew the straightest, most resinous timbers. They could read the landscape like a book, understanding that a subtle color variation in a stone outcrop signaled a different hardness, or that a particular seam of clay would fire to a specific, resilient strength. This profound, localized geology was their foundational wisdom. The loss of this art is one of our greatest disconnections from the past. We can replicate the shape of their buildings, but we cannot replicate the soul of their stone because we have forgotten the specific, sacred conversations they had with the very ground they walked upon. This deep material intimacy forces a humbling question. If they understood the land so perfectly for sourcing, what other profound secrets did they learn by simply listening to it? A stone was never just a stone in the eyes of these master builders. For the ancient Egyptians, the red granite from a swan was more than a durable material. It was the flesh of the gods, its fiery color embodying the life-giving power of the sun. They did not merely transport it for its hardness, they deliberately shaped it into the inner sanctums of their temples, believing the very substance of the stone could channel divine energy. Similarly, the choice of limestone for outer casings was a symbolic act, its pale hue representing the primordial mound of creation rising from the waters of chaos. Every block was a word in a sacred text written across the landscape. This fusion of the practical and the symbolic extended to metals as well. Gold was not chosen for its beauty alone, but for its perceived incorruptibility. It did not tarnish or decay, and so it became the physical metaphor for eternity, the perfect skin for a statue meant to house an immortal spirit. Silver, with its cool, lunar glow, was intrinsically linked to the moon and the cyclical nature of life and death. To incorporate these metals was to weave the immutable laws of the cosmos directly into the walls of a tomb or temple. This was a holistic science where the structural properties of a material were inseparable from its spiritual resonance. A building was not considered complete unless it was sound in both physics and philosophy, its foundation resting as firmly on cosmic principles as it did on the bedrock. The endurance of these structures may be rooted in this very unity. When every stone is placed with intention and reverence, when the entire edifice is a prayer solidified, the care invested transcends mere craftsmanship. We have largely lost this dimension in our modern world. Our materials are standardized and anonymous, chosen for cost and efficiency, stripped of their stories and their connection to a larger order. This shift represents more than a change in technology. It marks a different way of being in the world. The ancient approach saw meaning imbued in matter itself, creating a built environment that was a continuous dialogue between the human spirit and the living earth. The silent endurance of these ancient sites is more than a monument, it is a message. Our journey through the lost materials of ancient builders uncovers a startling truth. Their mastery was not a matter of primitive luck, but of a sophisticated and holistic science we are only now beginning to decode. They did not fight against nature with brute force, but engaged in a profound collaboration, using self-healing concrete that conversed with the sea, selecting stones for their thermal or even magnetic properties, and cultivating microscopic life to repair their own walls. This stands in stark contrast to our modern age of synthetic, disposable materials, where we have prioritized speed and uniformity over resilience and dialogue with the local environment. The incredible durability of their work is a silent testimony to knowledge systems that saw no separation between practical engineering and a deep, spiritual understanding of the living world. As we face our own global challenges with sustainable construction and crumbling infrastructure, the path forward may require us to look backward. The secrets held within these ancient stones remind us that true innovation is not always about inventing something new, but often about recovering a wisdom we misplaced in our rush toward progress. I encourage you to look at the old structures in your own world with new eyes, to wonder at the quiet intelligence locked within their seams. What other secrets do you think they might be keeping? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you are captivated by history's greatest mysteries, be sure to subscribe for our next exploration.